San Diego public school teachers are snubbing their own students to teach migrant kids at the border, all as homeschooling surges over 300%. In this video, we're going to take a look at the glaring disparity in the way illegal immigrant children are being treated by teachers and how American students are getting treated, how such a glaring disparity is awakening a populist backlash like never before, and how we can already see that backlash happening in a mass exodus of students from our nation's public schools. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you as always. We're here to give you each and every single day conservative hope in the midst of these turbulent and trying times, helping you to think better so you can feel better and provide for you that patriot path to freedom. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. For you podcast fans, we've now reached over 2 million podcast downloads, so make sure to click on that link below and sign up for our various podcast platforms. And we also got links to our Rumble and Parler channels down below. We'd love for you to subscribe to them as well. Before we dive into things here, did you know that a new study shows that omega-3s have a direct impact on reversing the effects of aging? That's why I highly recommend Omega Krill from our good friends over at BioTrust. Now, not only is it going to give you the right type of omega-3s that promote anti-aging, but if you click on that link below today, you're going to get Omega Krill at 51% off plus free shipping. So do not wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, Omega with Steve, and help reverse the effects of aging today. All right, guys, let's dive right in here. Fox News is reporting on a shocking disparity in the way teachers' unions are treating illegal immigrant students and how they're treating American students. A San Diego Unified School spokeswoman has announced that teachers were giving up their vacation time to volunteer to teach illegal immigrant children at the San Diego Convention Center, where they're housing upwards of about 700 school-aged children that illegally cross the border. Now, why are these teachers on vacation, you may ask? Well, that's a very good question, and you might think it's just because of their spring break. That's what the spokeswoman said. But the larger answer to that is that they've refused to go back to on-site teaching in their own school districts. Soon after San Diego Unified set an April 12th target date for reopening their schools, the San Diego Teachers Union pushed back and said, no way, they're not coming back that soon. It's too dangerous, they said. At this point, San Diego County has reported roughly about 1,800 new cases out of an estimated population of more than 3 million. This just in the past week. Now, that amounts to a 0.002% infection rate for San Diego residents. But that's far too high, apparently, for these teachers. So we can certainly understand why they're requiring American students to continue to learn remotely, right? We can certainly sympathize with that. That is until we read stories like this one coming from Fox. Astonishingly, these very same teachers who could not muster the courage to teach American students in person, they've nevertheless summoned the courage valiantly to selflessly travel to the San Diego Convention Center to teach illegal immigrant students in person, even though their rate of COVID infection is 437 times higher than the case rate threshold necessary to allow schools to reopen in California. The average here, the threshold for reopening in California is 25 cases per 100,000. If we take an average of the San Diego Convention Center, it turns out to be 11,000 cases per 100,000. Again, according to Fox, the same spokeswoman for the San Diego Teachers Union said, quote, some of our educators have volunteered to give up their vacation time, this week is our spring break, to help hundreds of teenage girls who are sheltering in our city away from their families, and in some cases, thousands of miles from home. Our teachers have volunteered to help. We're not paying them in any way because caring for children is central to who they are as human beings. The power of their example should inspire us all, and hopefully many others will be inspired to show these girls that we are a compassionate community. Well, apparently that compassion does not extend to teaching American kids in person. Now, in fairness, it's not just California. You probably heard, it's been widely reported, for whatever reasons, vaccinated teachers around the nation are refusing to go back to work. They don't want to be on site to teach. And so whatever altruism this spokeswoman is doing her best to recommend towards these teachers, It's very hard not to see a brutal double standard and disparity between the way illegals are being treated by these teachers and the way American citizens, American students are being treated. And what we have to understand is that this is not the first time this has happened. In fact, in many respects, this is 2015 all over again. We're going back to the very social conditions and pathologies that gave rise to Trump and the nationalist populist revolt in the very first place. Scholars started noticing this happening, particularly in Europe, which was, I would argue, is far ahead of us right now in terms of the nationalist populist backlash. Brexit has permanently scarred the EU big time. You got patriot parties throughout Europe like Lega in Italy, National Rally in France, have actually replaced their mainstream center-right parties. So they're ahead of us in terms of the populist revolt. And what scholars notice is that nothing, literally nothing, provokes a massive backlash against the permanent political class like the resentment citizens feel towards illegal immigration. In a survey by the Chatham House, which is a British think tank, they found that while 57% of Britain's political class believed immigration was always wonderful and good for Britain, only 25% of the British public felt the same way. Now, gang, that is a massive gap in sentiment between our globalist elites, our permanent political class, and the people, the tax-paying citizens. In fact, elites were twice as likely to reject the notion that immigration increases crime or puts a strain on the welfare system than the general public. Another Chatham House study found that 55% of people across 10 European nations agreed that, quote, all further immigration from Muslim states should be stopped. In Britain, as of the spring of 2018, 41% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 58% of 25 to 49-year-olds believed that immigration was too high in Britain. But we can zero in things even more here. It's not just a matter of unfettered immigration that upsets citizens. It's the resentment in the way that migrants are so often shown favored treatment over and against the concerns and needs of the citizens. So, for example, between the years of 2004 and 2013, the government of France spent nearly 40 billion euros to refurbish and rebuild mainly ethnic minority housing centers throughout their cities, but the government didn't spend anything even remotely like this on similarly depressed areas that are inhabited by native French citizens. And so this disparity between the way the French government treats immigrants, legal or illegal, and the way it treats its own citizens is creating what some scholars are calling the rise of peripheral France, where more and more citizens feel like they've been completely shut out from the national conversation decision-making. And so what scholars like Roger Eatwell and Matthew Goodwin have found is that the larger the proportion of immigrants or ethnic minorities in a particular region, the greater likelihood that the citizens in that region voted for the nationalist populist candidate, like Trump here in the States or Marine Le Pen in France. So these studies all point to the same conclusion. Open borders are openly guaranteeing a surge in populist sentiment. And that surge will only intensify given the radical disparity between the favorable ways governments treat the migrants and the dismissive ways they tend to treat citizens. But the good news is that in many respects, this may all be for naught. The current COVID crisis is doing far more than exposing the disparities between the way teachers treat migrant students and the way they treat American students. The COVID crisis and this populist revolt is actually causing a mass exodus of students leaving the public schools once and for all. Now, before we get into that, if you are looking for an encouraging and hopeful alternative to all the fake news nonsense that we hear spewed out on a daily basis from the leftist likes of CNN and MSNBC and all that, you're going to find no better antidote than what's in the pages of my book, The Return of Christendom. Gang, do not take my word for it. Just read through all the different reviews on Amazon. There's over 260 of them. And you see how this book cuts through all the cynicism and despair and hopelessness that we so often feel in this crazy globalist world. In page after page, I give you all the data, the statistics, the indicators that show nothing less than a new conservative Christian majority emerging throughout the United States and, yes, even in Europe. And it's already transforming the world map in a more nationalist, populist, and traditionalist world. And if you click on that link below, we are offering it to you for a limited time at a 50% discount. That's right, 50% off. So do not wait. This is a limited time offer. Click on that link and get your book at a super discount today and arm yourself with the hopeful information you need to crush fake news once and for all. All right, the wonderful news that's going on here is that homeschooling is absolutely surging throughout the U.S. This is from Reason Magazine. Take a look at this. Homeschooling has shot up 300% during the pandemic. Now, before the pandemic, the Census Bureau reported that about 3.3% of students in the United States were homeschooled. In the spring of 2020, when schools started to close down, the number of families who identified as homeschooling rose to 5.4% of their students. You ready for this? At the beginning of the fall of 2020, the start of the new school year, so many parents were so satisfied with the experience their kids had with learning at home, the number of families who identified as permanent homeschoolers shot up to 11.1% of students in the nation. In less than a year, we've gone from 3.3% of students in the nation being homeschooled to 11.1%. Now, this represented the single greatest surge in homeschooling that we've ever seen, at least since its comeback a few decades ago. The curriculum is 100% chosen by the parents, no critical race theory, no historical revisionism, no cultural Marxism, all gone. Just good old-fashioned reading, writing, and arithmetic, as it were. So, in the end, what we're finding is that the teachers' unions are their own worst enemy. Their refusal to return back to work is being reciprocated by families all across the nation who've not only rediscovered the joys and the benefits of historic homeschooling, but who are saying loud and clear to the progressive liberals who've taken over our public schools, your services are no longer needed. Welcome to the populist revolt. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to my channel. You definitely want to check out our awesome merch by clicking on the link below. And you'll definitely want to check out my latest video as well. I just uploaded on how Joe Biden's poll numbers implode as voters blame him for the border crisis and gun control. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.